The Galactic Accord Assembly Hall had seen many things in its 400-year history. Diplomatic crises. Species extinctions. The signing of 17 interstellar peace treaties. But it had never seen anything quite like Mara Ellison sitting cross-legged on a cold titanium floor, feeding synthesized protein cubes to a six-limbed alien who was quietly crying. "You don't have to eat them if you don't like them," Mara said. Kale Vera accepted another cube with two of his 6 trembling hands. "I am not crying because of the food," he said, his translator implant converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "I am crying because today, 3 cadets from the Drenhari Collective called me a hollowbone in front of the entire assembly wing." Mara stopped chewing. "They said I was too weak to serve aboard a warship," Kale continued. "That my species, the Vekari, were sympathy pets, not soldiers. That I had only been admitted to the academy because the humans took pity on me." He set the cube down. "They are not entirely wrong." "They are entirely wrong," Mara said. She said it the way she said most things, quietly, without drama. But something in her tone made Kale look up. Mara Ellison was not impressive to look at. She stood at 1.7 standard meters, small, by most species measurements. Her skin was a warm brown, her hair was tied in a practical braid, and her eyes were a very ordinary shade of dark brown. She had no claws, no exoskeleton, no secondary cardiovascular system, no natural toxins. By every biological metric the Galactic Accord used to classify combat suitability, she scored almost insultingly average. But she was human. And humans, Kale had learned over 14 months of shared academy training, were deeply, profoundly strange in ways that the biological metrics never captured. "Which cadets?" she asked. "Mara." "I'm not asking so I can do something stupid," she said. "I'm asking so I know." Kale hesitated. Then he named them. Commander Cadet Rose Alger. Cadet Saren Valdake. Cadet Pryn Moore. 3 of the highest-ranked Drenhari in their cohort. Rose alone had 6 confirmed combat decorations and had been fast-tracked for Deep Space Command. Mara nodded slowly. Then she smiled. The smile was the part that unsettled people. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't threatening. It was the smile of someone who had just solved a puzzle, relaxed, private, almost pleased. Kale had seen it before, during their third-year survival exercises when the instructors had dropped them in a -40-degree environment with faulty gear, and Mara had looked at the broken heating unit with that same expression before taking it apart with her bare hands and putting it back together in a way the designers had never intended. She'd kept them both warm for 60 hours. "Rest," she told him now. "I'll handle it." "You cannot handle Rose Alger," Kale said, alarmed. "He is 3 times your body mass and has—" "I'm not going to fight him," Mara said. Which was somehow more alarming. The formal challenge came the next morning. Not a physical duel, those were banned under Academy regulations, but an assessment of merit, a structured competitive evaluation across 3 categories of combat readiness. Any cadet could issue one against another if they believed rank had been improperly awarded. Rose Alger filed it against Mara Ellison at 0600 hours, clearly expecting her to either refuse or perform poorly. The categories he selected were maximum load endurance, zero-gravity navigation, and pain threshold testing, a Drenhari specialty that involved progressive neural stimulation. It was well known that Drenhari had among the highest natural pain tolerances in the Accord. It was equally well known that humans were unimpressive in that area. Or so the biology textbooks said. The assembly hall filled early. Species who had never shown interest in cadet assessments suddenly found themselves with free time. Kale stood at the edge of the observation ring, his 6 hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles had gone pale. Rose Alger entered in full Drenhari formal posture, all 4 meters of him, scaled, armored in his own natural plating, radiating the calm certainty of someone who had never once doubted the outcome of anything. Mara entered in standard cadet gray, braids slightly untidy, holding a cup of coffee. She finished it before the assessment began. Category 1, Maximum Load Endurance. The test involved carrying progressive weight increments across a 1-kilometer track until the subject could no longer continue. Drenhari were known for their explosive strength. They burned fast and hot, optimized for intense short-duration combat. Rose finished at 3.2 kilometers, carrying 340 kilograms. An excellent score. The assembly applauded. Mara kept walking. She walked at the same pace she'd started at. Methodical. Even. The weight increased incrementally. She didn't speed up. She didn't slow down. She simply continued, the way humans had continued across ice shelves and deserts and mountain ranges on a death world that had spent 4 billion years trying to kill them. She finished at 6.1 kilometers, carrying 410 kilograms. She wasn't gasping. She was sweating. There was a difference. Rose stared at her. Mara picked up another cup of coffee from the cadet who was very nervously holding one nearby. Category 2, Zero Gravity Navigation. This involved a 3-dimensional obstacle course in a depressurized chamber, completed in full EVA gear, with random course changes triggered mid-run. Drenhari were excellent in gravity. In 0G, their size became a liability. Mara moved like she'd been born without gravity. Later, someone asked her about it. I used to free climb, she said, as if that explained anything. It did, actually, if you understood humans. Which most species were still working on. Category 3, Pain Threshold Testing. The hall went quiet. The neural stimulator was calibrated to Drenhari baseline. Rose submitted to the progression with visible ease, his face a carved mask of professional indifference. He lasted until level 22 before his body's autonomic responses forced a stop. Level 22 was the Academy record. The assembly was already murmuring in admiration. Then Mara sat down. Level 5. 10, 15. At level 15, most non-Drenhari species had already stopped. Kale had covered his eyes. Level 18. 19, 20. Mara's jaw was set. Her hands were flat on her thighs. Her knuckles were white. She was not making a sound. What the Drenhari pain threshold tests measured was the point at which pain signals overwhelmed voluntary motor control. What they had never fully accounted for was a species whose entire evolutionary history involved ignoring overwhelming signals in order to survive long enough to reach safety. Humans didn't have high pain tolerance because they didn't feel pain. They had high pain tolerance because they had spent millions of years learning to feel it fully and keep moving anyway. Level 21. Level 22. Level 23. The machine stopped automatically at 23, the safety cutoff. The Academy medic scrambled forward. Mara held up a hand, and the medic stopped. She stood up. Her legs were shaking slightly. She ignored this. She looked at Rose Aljuer, all 4 meters of him, scales gleaming, expression unreadable, and she smiled. That same quiet, solve-the-puzzle smile. Your cadets told my friend, she said, her voice steady, that the Vekari were too weak to serve. That Kale didn't earn his place. She tilted her head slightly. I'd like to formally note, for the assembly record, that Kale Vera has completed every assessment I have, with fewer biological advantages, and never once complained. Which means he's tougher than any metric you've been using to measure him. Silence. He's also the only person at this academy who asked if I was homesick during my first week, she added. So he has better instincts than most of us, too. The formal assessment of merit recorded a result in favor of Cadet Mara Ellison across all 3 categories. Commander Cadet Rose Aljuer filed no appeal. Cadet Saren Valdek apologized to Kale Vera the following morning, which was so unexpected that Kale stood frozen in the corridor for 40 seconds before remembering how to respond. Cadet Pryn Moore requested a transfer to a different training cohort. You didn't have to do that, Kale told Mara that evening. They were back on the titanium floor. She had more protein cubes. He had, at some point, decided he actually liked them. I know, she said. It was very dangerous. Level 23. I knew I could handle it. How? Mara was quiet for a moment. Because it was for something that mattered, she said finally. When it's for something that matters, humans can handle most things. Kale looked at her, this small, unarmored, biologically average creature from a world that had tried to kill her species in 1,000 ways and failed, and felt something he did not have a word for in Standard Galactic. He thought perhaps the human word was grateful. Though that felt too small. Thank you, he said. Mara handed him another protein cube. Don't thank me, she said. Just watch my back next week in tactical simulations. You're better at three-dimensional threat mapping than anyone in our cohort, and I need that. Kale's 6 hands stilled. You actually need my help? I actually need your help. He straightened. All 6 hands steadied. His eyes, which were a soft bioluminescent gold, brightened slightly in the way Vekari eyes did when they felt something good. Then, he said formally, you have it. Mara smiled again. This time it wasn't the puzzle smile. This one was just warm. Somewhere in the galaxy, 1,000 species were still trying to figure out what exactly made humans so dangerous. The answer, if they'd been paying attention, was sitting on a titanium floor, sharing protein cubes with a 6-limbed alien, completely unbothered. It was never the strength. It was never the pain tolerance. It was that they simply refused to leave their people behind.